hello everyone. We should now be live. If you can hear me, see me, then please let me know in the chat. This is my very first time doing a live stream. So this is completely new to me. So I would really appreciate any feedback that this is working and going well, because it's been quite a bit of tech setup to get everything prepared and ready to go. Let me know if my audio is too loud or too quiet. I can try and adjust that to make sure that you're hearing me just fine. So let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me. There is a little bit of a delay with the chat and the stream, so if I don't respond to you straight away, then that will be why. So I think there's like a 30 to 60 second delay. So I see a few of you are popping in saying hi. Thank you so much for joining. All right, I sound crisp and look crisp. That is awesome to hear. I am super excited that you have joined me on this live stream. Pop in the chat where you are streaming in or watching in from, I guess. It would be awesome to see where everybody in the world is. In case you don't know, I'm in Toronto, Canada. I actually only moved to Toronto, Canada in August last year. So it's only been about 6 months since I've been living here. Before that, I was actually living in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I assume that if you're here in this live stream, you already subscribe to my channel, and so you know a little bit about who I am and what I do. But in case you don't and you're totally new and this is the first time you're here, then my name's Femke and I am a product designer currently working at Uber. I work on Ubereats. I actually work on the restaurant experience. So experiences relating to restaurants, setting up their menu, managing their account, seeing how many sales they've done, the whole sort of restaurant manager dashboard. That's what I work on, and that's been really fun. Looks like we've got people coming in from all over. We've got a few in the US, India, California, Seattle, Scotland, hello, San Francisco, New York, Amsterdam, shout out to Amsterdam, Istanbul, London. Okay. Awesome, we have people dialing in from all over, which is super cool. So what I want to do with this live stream is, yesterday I actually reached 6,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is really awesome, and I want to say a huge thank you. And I was like, having this idea of doing a live stream for a little while, and I was like, oh, when should I do it? And then when I hit 6,000 subscribers, I was like, you know what? Screw it, I'm just gonna do it, use the moment or the opportunity to kind of celebrate reaching this milestone and kind of connect with you live for the first time, which is super cool. So thank you for the 6,000 subscribers. And what I wanna do in this live stream is two things. I'd love to do a bit of a sort of design Q&A. So if you have any questions about design, maybe you're struggling with something right now, maybe you want some advice in your design career, trying to get to the next step or trying to apply for a job, leave that in the chat. I will try and get to your question. Actually, I set up, hopefully this works, some cool little banners that come up. So if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat. I will try and get to it when I can. And the other thing that I think would be super fun to do during this live stream is to do some portfolio reviews. So if you would like me to review your portfolio live on this stream, then you can head on over to Twitter and send me a DM. Unfortunately, I don't believe YouTube lets you leave a link in the chat. So hence why, if you have Twitter, you can head on over there, send me a DM. My DMs are open with a link to your portfolio. And also, the most important part is that it would be really helpful for me to know what kind of feedback you're looking for on your portfolio. So it's helpful to know where you are at in your design career right now. Are you a student, a recent graduate, a few years in? And what is the current goal of your portfolio? Are you trying to land a job? Are you trying to refine your case studies? And then what are you really sort of using your portfolio for right now? Are you using it for trying to get a job or trying to get into design school? I know when I was applying for design school, I had to have a portfolio for that. So a little bit of context around what the goal of your portfolio is and the kind of feedback you're looking for would be really, really awesome. You can send that over to me on Twitter. And I have been getting a few requests for this already since yesterday. So no promises, I'm probably not going to be able to get to everybody's portfolio, but I will try my best to get to as many as possible. But I also don't want it to go on too long, so they'll probably be short and sweet portfolio reviews. So, looks like you can all hear me fine and you're all here in the chat, which is awesome. Shout out to everybody here. Thank you. So we do have a question from Kevin who asks, any tips for keeping remote team members connected? So I don't work remote full time, but I have been working remote ever since COVID-19, which I'm sure we're all affected by in different ways right now. And I think there's like ways to stay connected that are like work related, and then ways to stay connected that are more like about well-being and connection. So let's talk a bit more about well-being or wellness and connection. So some things that we have been doing, I'll just share my experience, is we recently started a pen pal program we have this sort of internal group, Women of Ubereats. And we started a pen pal program as a way to just connect with other women in design at Uber and just send a lovely note. It's super nice to receive something physical in the mail. We don't do it that much anymore. And so we kind of paired people up and you didn't know who had you. So when you got the note, it was a real surprise who it was from. And it was just a nice, cute little message to kind of brighten your day. That was really nice. We've done some other things like virtual happy hours. We've also done virtual chat and choose, which is like lunchtime where we just come online, have lunch, hang out together like we would in the lunchroom. I also, with my team recently, we spent a Friday morning baking together. So we had a recipe and we were all following the same recipe, and that was really, really fun to bake. So I think there's a lot of ways to stay connected being a remote team. And I don't know, I feel like it's only getting easier in a way as I've been doing this now for a couple of weeks, like getting in the groove of things. This isn't really a current struggle for us right now, but yeah, those are just some ideas that you could think about and bring back to your team and see if they're interested in doing some of those things. Let's see. Okay, Shreyan, what's the design process in Ubereats like, if you can give a bit of a brief overview? Cool, so we have this internal process called the checkpoint process, and it is 4 checkpoints, and we use this for every project. It's usually led or owned by the product manager, but design does play a really, really important role in the checkpoint process. And checkpoints could be maybe like 3 weeks apart, 4 weeks apart. This also goes to show sometimes our projects can take really long. But I'm going to try and remember off the top of my head what each checkpoint is. Essentially, checkpoint 1 is, we get all the stakeholders together in a room and we walk through like, this is the goal, or this is the problem. This is what we're trying to solve. These are the assumptions we have. These are the milestones we have and the like target dates or deadlines that we want to reach. So it's kind of just like this is what we're setting out to achieve. Checkpoint 2 is when we start to introduce a bit more design. So it'll be, here's like the explorations, here's the journeys, here's also, maybe there's some research insights coming in there also that's informing the designs. So that's kind of like an intro to where we are in the design process. It's not final design, so it's very early exploratory work. Checkpoint 3 is more refined. So this is more of like almost the kind of final design phase where, so we've got all the goals, we've got the research insights, and now here's the refined designs. And now we're getting more into solution or handoff phase. And so this is kind of like a speak now or forever hold your peace kind of checkpoint where it's like a final, getting everybody together in one room, getting the right sign off and making sure we're all good to go into development. And then checkpoint 4, which is the last checkpoint, is just before we're about to go live. So it's a final, like, do we have the green light? Are we all ready to go? Is everything in place? And then hopefully the answer to that is yes. And then we go live and launch the project. So that's kind of a very high level overview of the process that we use at Ubereats. As I said, it's very much sort of run by product. Product kind of owns that process, but design plays a very, very big role in that process as well. So we kind of adopt that process into our own design process too. I use the word process a lot of times there, sorry, but hopefully that answers your question. Let's see, what else do we have? Charlie asks, hey Charlie, what is your favorite part of your job? So I think what has been really enjoyable for me with this job is the level of impact that I get to have is quite big. So working at a company like Uber is very, very large scale. And so it is kind of awesome that I have this opportunity to impact a lot of people's lives, or in my case, I work on, the restaurant experience. So I get to have a lot of impact on restaurants. And it's really, really fun when we do research to actually go and spend time with restaurants. We have this internal program called Test Kitchen, where we actually go and work in a restaurant for half of a day and help fulfill Eats orders. And that is super, super fun to do. I love that being a designer doesn't mean I'm just sitting behind my screen pushing pixels all day, but I'm out there spending time with restaurants, doing research. All of that stuff is a lot of fun. It makes it a very, very rewarding job. Let's see what other questions we have. Okay, Jessica asks, any tips for starting out in product UX design, getting your foot in the door before having any experience? Okay, so I hear this question a lot, how to get started, how to get your foot in the door. This is tricky if you don't have any experience, right? A lot of the time, companies or recruiters will be looking for someone with the right level of experience for the job. And if you don't have that experience, it can be really, really hard. So my advice is to find a way to get that experience, find a way to get the experience that they're looking for. And that might be in the form of doing a side project, find something that you like to tinker on and give yourself your own briefs or own projects and noodle on it at home in your own time. Or maybe it's freelance work, reach out to family and friends. Maybe there's an opportunity there for you to, offer up your design skills and get that experience. So there's a few different ways to go about it. Obviously, if you're studying, that also gives you experience. You can put your schoolwork in your portfolio. There is absolutely no shame in that. I actually encourage it. So a lot of ways to get experience. If you are starting out in product and UX design, I do recommend there's a lot of resources online now to learn this stuff. You can either go to like a formal online learning platform like lynda.com or something, or Skillshare has a lot of good courses now. But you can also just teach yourself. I find some books that I've read have been really, really helpful. There's some really great blogs. I recommend Julie Zhu has a very, very great blog, Through the Looking Glass, I think it's called. There's also like newsletters and things you can sign up to. I'll try to come back and leave links to these in the description later on. But there is a lot of free resource out there that you can use to try and get experience. So that's where I'd recommend you start. Charlie also called out The Future. Yeah, they also have some really great, there's a lot of great YouTubers now too. So The Future is really great. I also really recommend Flux, which is Rand's channel. He does a lot of cool Webflow stuff. And Charlie too, obviously, if you haven't checked out Charlie's channel, she has some great videos about design that I would really, really recommend. Okay, what about we do a portfolio review? How does that sound to you all? Let's see if I can make this work. Okay, hopefully now you should see my Chrome window, which is currently my own portfolio website, which I'm hoping to update soon. I actually don't have any work on my portfolio right now. And I don't know, I'm kind of okay with it because I have a job that I really enjoy and have no intention of leaving right now, so I don't feel the need to have work on here. But I plan to be adding work at some point, so I'm not really leading by example here. Okay, so reminder, if you want your portfolio reviewed, send it to me on Twitter. I'm now going to go and check my Twitter DMs and pick a portfolio. Bear with me. I'm also going to drink some of my tea. All right. You should be seeing this. Okay. Right, so this is from, I'm so sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Mordechai. And let's see what Mordechai said. I'm a recent graduate of Interaction Design BS with a unique background. I've had very little luck utilizing my degree. I've had a few motion design gigs since graduation, but they've all been short term. And I'd really like to be doing UX or product. Okay, so sounds like you've been doing some motion work, but you are looking into getting more into UX and product design. So as I first come to this site, you've got a nice big photo of you, which is always nice and friendly. I always like when people have a photo of themselves. It just feels a little bit more personal. This is a little small. I would probably scan this. I see here that you have UX, UI, motion design, front end web. Okay, this is like quite a few things. So this is like at least 3 different core skills. And if you really want to be going for UX and product design, then I would recommend that you lean into that really heavily. So I would really lean into the UX UI, and then maybe you can have motion and front end listed somewhere else. I don't know if you have an about me page or if that is kind of it, but if you had like a separate section that went more in detail about who you are, maybe there's like your resume there and a bit more of a story about you, then maybe that's a better place to mention those secondary skills that you have. So let's look at your projects. Okay, Hulu Design Bridge, enabling conversations about, okay, so here I'm thinking, what skill does this project relate to? Was this a motion design project? Was it UX or product design? Not entirely sure what your role was there. This looks like a collection of motion graphics work. Now again, if you want to be leaning into the UX UI stuff, then I would recommend making sure the top 2 projects are UX UI. Typically, I always recommend having your strongest case studies first, and then you should always highlight the case studies that really highlight the skill or the area of expertise that you want to go into. So in this case, it would be good to see like 2 strong UX case studies here. Let's look into this Hulu one. Okay. All right, context. Okay, so I'm really looking for like what your role was. Okay, here. You worked within a team of 3 other designers. And okay, so here's finally your list of responsibilities. Research, prototyping, visual design. Okay, not really seeing UX or product here. So already if I was looking at this portfolio, I wouldn't be putting you in like a UX product designer bucket, so to speak. In general, what I am missing here is the problem statement. So initially, at the beginning of a case study, I always try to, the thing I'm always looking for is like, what was the problem that you were solving? And I see like a summary, which doesn't tell me that much, something about a toolkit. And then it goes into insights, which it's great that you're including insights. I love seeing research and case studies, but I'm really missing between here some kind of problem statement as to, I still don't actually know what this project is about, to be honest. Process, that's always nice to include. Oh, very interactive, which is quite cool. Okay, so maybe this is the problem statement. Again, I would really like to see this higher up. Getting into research. Okay, so I think like the key structure of the case study is here, which is good. But again, missing the problem statement at the beginning, and then also doesn't lean super into UX and product, so would have really liked to see that there. Okay, let's choose another one. Hopefully you can all see this. My chat has not updated for the last 5 minutes, so I assume that this is still working fine and you're all just being very quiet. Okay, let me choose another one. Okay, here is one from Sean. Okay, so some context from Sean. I'm actively looking for junior positions. All I've received is rejection letters. Sorry, that really sucks. I feel like a big part of why my portfolio didn't stand out is that my case studies were not well written. Okay, curious, Sean, if you got feedback that your case studies were not well written from the recruiters, or if you assume this on your own. But let's take a look at your case studies then. Where are they? Here. Okay. Would have liked to see them a little bit higher up, but that's fine. I found them. Okay, so it takes me to Medium, which is okay. Okay, card game case studies for this demo. Okay, it's not actually a demo, it's just a picture. Okay, project goal, create a fun card game. Heroes. Okay, so typically I do recommend starting, what you saw in the other portfolio is the case study starts with a little bit of context or background setting. So what was your role? Was this like a personal project, a student project? Was it at a company? What was the time frame? What year? Was this done in 2019? I don't know when this was done or how old this work is. So missing a little bit of the context here. Project goal, create a fun card game is a little vague, to be honest. Like, it would have been really good to see a more cohesive goal or maybe problem. Like, how did this kind of come about, I guess, is what I want to know. Like, did you just decide you wanted to do something fun, or what were you really trying to achieve? Was it just to make a game or to make a interactive game? So a little bit more clarity there would have been good to know. This seems to me like a personal project, I'm gonna guess. And if so, what I usually look for in personal projects is constraints. So what are the constraints that you set yourself? It's really, really easy when doing personal projects to just have no constraints, and kind of like do whatever you want to do and go as wide as you want to go. But I think one of the key skills of a product designer is being able to work and design within constraints. And so if you set yourself constraints at the beginning of this and articulate those, then that helps me see that you're able to work within constraints and that you're able to sort of make design decisions around those constraints. So that's just a little pro tip for if you're doing personal projects. I think setting constraints shows to me that you're thinking about this in an articulate way. Cool. So, okay, so there's an intro down here. Kind of confusing. I thought that above was the intro. Okay, you jump straight into usability testing, but there is no context of how you got to this point. So how did you get to this? Like, how did you get to the test that you wanted to run? Missing a little bit of exploratory work here, and a little bit of what you set out to test and why, and how you kind of got to this point. Be also good to know how you ran the test. I don't know if that's said here. Like, was this with a friend? Was this with a potential customer? Did you do this in person, online? Like, a little bit of context around how you ran the test would be really helpful. Let's go and check out another one of your case studies to kind of compare. Maybe this one, lunch mob redesign. Cool. Okay. All right. So now I'm not on Medium, so this is a bit different. Okay, so here you've got the context. So the team I assume this is your role. It would be nice for that to be a little bit more explicit. And then class project. Great. So you know this already. I would like to see this applied to your medium case study. Propose objectives. Okay, so here, right, this is not a problem statement. This is a solution. So again, I want to be really clear that your case study should always begin with the problem statement, not potential solutions, because that doesn't actually tell me about why you were doing this project and what you were actually trying to solve. So I recommend turning this more into like the problem statement rather than proposed like solutions, because this doesn't really give me context as to what you were trying to achieve. This is nice. Is this the final design? I'm not entirely sure. Okay, yes, redesigned. Okay, so, I mean, it's kind of nice that you include the final design at the beginning, so I have context of the project. But maybe you could have included that in the here. I guess you kind of did. Yeah, it just wasn't super clear what I was looking at here, I guess is my feedback. Nice to see the design process. Research, interview. Okay, just like a general piece of feedback for case studies here is that I'm highly unlikely to read all of this. So I would recommend breaking this up into smaller sections. Maybe you can like have some pull-out quotes, especially in research. Like the most important thing is like, what was the outcome of the research? Like bam, 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 these are the key takeaways or the key insights. I would love to see those extracted here so I can just get a sense of that without having to read through all of this, because to be honest, I probably would not read all of it. Cool. Okay, should we do one more? And I see that we're also getting some extra love in the chat, so that's great. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay, so this portfolio is from Emery, who I know is in New Zealand, so cannot make this live stream, but he said he would really like me to review his portfolio. So here we go. He said he's not currently seeking a new role, but he would like to know, for example, if I applied for a role at Uber, what would your thoughts be as a hiring manager? He also uses this portfolio as a way for prospective clients to see sites that he's built with Webflow if they're considering hiring me. Okay, so sounds like maybe Emery is doing a little bit of freelance work on the side as like a Webflow designer and developer, and so maybe uses the site as a bit of an example to display some of his skills. Okay, so Emery, let's have a look. Designer, developer, okay. Would be nice to have a bit more like clarity around what kind of designer you are. How do you, like, what kind of design discipline do you consider yourself to be an expert in? Is it marketing design, web design, product design? That would be really interesting to know. Let's see, my projects. So I like that you have included what I'm assuming is the final design or the final solution in your thumbnails, because that immediately gives me an indication of the project and what the case study is going to be about. I really, really like it when portfolios have these kind of really visual thumbnails with the final solution, because I can easily tell exactly what you did. Like, I know that here, this looks like a bit of product design, this looks like a bit of web or something, this looks like print or something. So that helps me get an understanding of the breadth of your design discipline, so to speak. Photo, that's always super nice. Okay, so let's say I was considering you for a job. I would click into a portfolio. Okay, part of a weekend hackathon, that's nice context. Okay, so this sounds like where the project came about, considering going on a road trip. Didn't know how much I'd have to chip in for fuel, so pitched the idea. Okay, so this is nice context, right? And this is super easy to do with personal projects, is like give a little bit of backstory as to how this came about. Like, what inspired you to do this, or like what problem were you experiencing, or what gap was there where you felt like you could fill with some kind of solution. So this is super nice. Visit road trip. Okay, I'm gonna assume that you built this then, and let's see where this takes me to. Okay, so like a live demo, which is pretty cool. This is nice to see if it is a final product that's actually launched in the wild. To have a link to it somewhere at the beginning is really, really great context, so I can actually go here and see what you actually designed and built. That's great. Problem. Okay, cool. So this is a great example of starting with a problem statement. This is great. Road trips are hard to budget for because of fuel. Why does it matter? Teens have no money. They like road trips though. Okay, fair enough. I immediately understand the problem here that you're trying to solve. Solution. Okay, so I assume this is final solutions, but that's not super clear. So would love a little bit of clarity around that. And I assume now you're going to dive into the story of how you actually got to this. User testing. Okay, so I was not expecting the portfolio to end, the case study to end there. I thought it was going to go on. So I guess what's missing is how you got to the solution. What were the different explorations that you considered? How did you make decisions when it came to refining and choosing a final solution? What were the factors that influenced those decisions? That would be really, really great to see. I'm not really seeing how you came to this kind of final design, which, I mean, the final design looks nice and polished. This seems pretty straightforward. Enter my start and end. Not sure why I would need a license plate number, but that's fine. And I assume it's going to estimate the cost of the fuel for that trip. But yeah, I would love to see a little bit more about how you actually got to that final solution. Let's try one more. Dyslexia potential. Okay. So here again, a bit of context. It's a program for dyslexic kids. Okay. Okay. All right, now I'm thinking like, okay, did you just do the graphic design for this? Because I'm seeing a lot of visual design. I'm not sure what this is. I'm assuming you... Okay, so would love some more clarity here on what your role was in this. Were you just doing some visual graphic design? I'm just double checking you didn't say that here. Oh yeah, I was responsible for coming up with engaging classroom content and marketing collateral. Okay, so you do say it, but it's very hidden. So I would like to see this pulled out so that it's really, really clear what your actual role was in this project. Great work. Okay, why don't we take a break from portfolios and do some more questions? Let me check the chat. So Kevin, are you going to do a critique of your own site today? No, I'm not, but that does sound like it might make an interesting video because I have a lot of opinions about my own site. Of course, as a designer, you know, you're just never happy with your own stuff. So maybe that would be a fun thing for me to do. So any questions, feel free to pop them in. Let's see, Lorenzo. Let's say you've worked for a startup doing a mix of UX and UI and the product can't be shown due to NDA. How would you speak about the experience? Okay, so this can be tricky if you have work that you cannot show due to NDA. My recommendation here would be to password protect it if you can. That way you can still write the case study, have all the explorations and have the final solution there, but have it behind a password. That way it's not publicly viewable, and then you only give the password maybe on request or to the hiring manager or somebody that you trust. Another thing you could do is mention it in your application and then show it in your interview. So that's something that I've seen done before, where typically as part of our hiring process, we have the candidate come in and we do a group portfolio review. And so that candidate has the opportunity to walk through their projects. Sometimes they walk through their website, other times they create a presentation. And that could maybe be a place where you could show that work because it's in a private, confined room. So that could be another place. You just sort of mention it at the beginning and then be prepared to show it later if requested. But otherwise, if you can't do any of these things, like if visual's just completely off the table, then you have two options. You either don't include it in your portfolio, or you include it, but you more just talk about it without mentioning specifics, which can be tricky. So I don't always recommend this. But if you feel like you have really strong skills from that project that you want to highlight, then you could just talk about the learnings. You could talk about the things that you achieved without showing visuals. Wouldn't recommend this unless you really had no alternative. I would first recommend either the password or showing it in your interview. If you can do that, that would be my advice. Okay, what other questions? Okay, Derek, how would you present work that you were working on but was dropped halfway? This is hard, Derek. I'm curious why you would like to include this project in your portfolio. Is there something about that project that you are really proud of that you want to show? I think it can be hard to have a case study that isn't the full story. And case studies are a lot about telling a story, right? How did this project come about? What are the different things that you explored, the decisions you made, the explorations, refining, solution. And if you don't have that full story, then it's not as powerful or as compelling. So curious as to why you would want to include that work in your portfolio. If you do want to include it, then I would just be honest. Don't try and hide the fact that you didn't make it, like you weren't there until the end or whatever. I would be very honest in that, this is where we got up to, and then my involvement, was no longer there. I actually have a few projects that never got shipped that I want to include in my portfolio. So we didn't drop it halfway. We completed the projects, but they didn't actually ship. And I still intend to include those in my portfolio because I still think they're really good examples of the design process that I used, how we solved problems, the different challenges along the way. And even though it never went live, I think there's still a lot of learnings and experience within that process that I think is still really, really valuable to show. So in general, if you feel like it's valuable to include it, then do that and just be honest about the fact that you weren't there until the end or something. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let's see. Okay, now we're getting a lot of questions, which is exciting. Thank you, everybody. Let's see what else we have. Okay, sorry, I'm still catching up with the chat because I realize you've been chatting while I've been talking and then I haven't been able to read it all. But there's a lot of great comments in here. Vishnu, how do you keep yourself updated on design trends? Honestly, I don't. I'm not really big on design trends. I am much more about solving problems. And in terms of design news, honestly, my Twitter timeline keeps me pretty updated. But I'm not actively keeping up with the latest trends. I find that I usually turn to the apps that I use on my phone for inspiration on trends, I guess, or what's working and what's not working really well. So I don't actively seek out trends, but I find that they somehow find me, in whether it's in the products that I use or the people I'm following or the design news that I read. I get that information there. Okay, Ganesh, how do you prepare for applying to design lead manager roles? I have not been in this position where I've never applied for a management role, and I've also not applied for design leads. My experience has more been internal growth, so I don't have the answer to this question, unfortunately. But if somebody in the chat does, please help Ganesh out. I assume that for these kinds of roles, things there's more than just case studies that are important when it comes to this level of responsibility. So I'm assuming that you would have to work on more than just a portfolio. Kendra, what application and format do you use to save your prototypes and pass it off to software developers? I use Figma for pretty much my entire design process. So to be honest, when I'm creating prototypes, it's often not for engineering, but for research. So we create prototypes when we're doing user testing. and we create those in Figma, and we have the prototype link to Figma, and we use that for testing. Our engineers have access to our Figma files from day one, so they are always in there, and we don't necessarily create like handoff prototypes for engineering. Instead, within our design file, we have like flows with like static flows. So there's like the screens, and then there's arrows connecting things to each other. This is easy for us to keep track of, like making sure there's no dead ends in the flows, and then we can also sort of leave comments under each screen, which is really helpful, or add extra context, and this seems to work fine for us, so we don't really hand off prototypes to engineering. What element from Eureka, what element of the designer makes the most stand when applying for a UX job? Okay, I think what you're asking is what makes you stand out. And what is your decision point? Okay, what makes you stand out? I think this is subjective. I don't think this is the same for every company or every hiring manager. One of the things that I look for, okay, again, it depends on the level of the role also. So if you're applying for an intern position versus a design lead, it's going to be different things that are going to stand out. Lately, we have been interviewing for interns, so I will talk about that. So when it comes to hiring an intern, things that stand out are honestly just potential. So you don't necessarily have to be someone with the fanciest website or the most impressive case studies. If you're someone that we think has a lot of potential for growth, potential for learning, then that is going to make you stand out a lot more as a candidate. And again, it's subjective, it's hard to define because what is potential? But yeah, we're just really looking for someone that we think would be a good fit or a good add to our team. And that is someone that we could foster and grow into like a junior product designer position. And so along with that, we often look for a lot of motivation, like enthusiasm, excitement about the role, someone who's really passionate and excited about working at Uber. That plays a big role too in making a decision. And so, yeah, someone that's just has that potential, is excited, is well-rounded, obviously has some good case studies and has thought through their presentation well, is going to stand out to me more than someone who's just blasting out their portfolio to everybody. It's not super polished. There's unfinished stuff, not refined case studies. Yeah, that's one of the deciding factors. Oh my gosh, so much chat. Let's see. Okay, Shriyan, can you mention an instance where you use data to leverage your design decision? And how can one be a more data-driven designer? I'm really happy that you asked this question because I feel like most designers don't talk about this very much, but as a designer, I am very close with the data science team, and we use a lot of the data and the science, obviously, to inform some of the design decisions. I've been talking for too long now, obviously. So usually what we do is before we launch something, we run a test. So it'll just be a small like A/B test, or I think they call it like control and I don't know, I'm not a data scientist, but anyway, there's basically a control group and then there's like a test group, and then we compare and see the difference. And depending on the results of that, it will influence the design. So if we see that, I'm making this up, but if we see that people in the new test group are not clicking the button that we want them to click, then we know that we might have to change that design. So working with data science a lot to really help inform those decisions of what we might need to change in the design to improve. So definitely recommend making buddies with your data scientist. And if you don't have a data scientist, you can always do surveys and then use the results from those surveys to inform the decisions that you want to make going forward. Okay, let's go back to maybe doing some more portfolios because I feel like that was fun. and hopefully you enjoy those also. Let me just get back to the right screen. Okay, let's see. I had like quite a few requests for portfolio reviews, so I'm really sorry that I'm probably not going to get to all of them. Okay, let's do this one from Derek. Okay, Derek says, I'm still early in my career, around 2 years of experience, most recently working at Toast Inc., cloud-based restaurant software company. Cool, laid off due to COVID. Really sorry about that. Looking for next opportunity. Looking for feedback on structure and clarity of the work that I've done. Okay, so 2 years of experience, looking for a new job, wanting feedback on structure and clarity. Let's see. Okay, I'm Derek, product designer. Cool, immediately I know what kind of designer you are. Inspired by people and their stories. I hope to empower them to do what they love and thrive through design. That's nice. View resume. This is great. If you're looking for a job, as a hiring manager, almost the first thing I always do when I go to someone's website is either to find their LinkedIn or their resume. So I would immediately click this to see what your experience and your history is in design. I'm not going to look at it now, but it's great that you have it there at the top. That's super handy for me as a hiring manager. Okay, so looks like you have a few projects, Toast Payments, Toast Payroll, etc. Again, I like the presentation and the layout of these, that I can kind of see the final design straight away. It gives me, especially in this context where you have like, it's not just the screen, but it's like the screen on the tablet. It's clearly like some sort of point of sales service or something. That is super, super clear. So I really like this, and would love to see more people present their design in that way. Just gives it a lot more context. Okay, let's have a look at the project timeline. Cool, nice to have that. All right, this is a bit about your role, which is really good to see. Okay, redesign of payments experience. All right, you have the project goal. Metric, this is nice to see. I don't see many case studies actually include what the data goal is, I guess, or like what are the metrics you're trying to achieve. Most projects, like, you know, when I work on projects at Uber, we always have like these actual target goals. So usually it's there, but people don't seem to share them. But it's nice to see that like this is what you were trying to do, increase payment completion rate and reduce inbound support volume. That's really, really nice to see. These photos are lovely, by the way. Very nice. Process. Cool. It might have been nice to see this like in a visual way. Like, I forget, one of the other portfolios we were looking at had this laid out quite visually. So that could have been nice, but it's fine. All right, below our experience is focused on cash payments. Okay, unable to showcase the credit payment flow. Okay, this is actually a good example of what we were talking about earlier. Actually, Derek, was it you that had asked that question? I don't remember. But the question about if you weren't there to the end of a project or something, or maybe like some of it's missing for some reason, maybe it's not released or whatever. This is just a great example of just being honest about it. And so I like this, I respect it. I'm like, cool, not able to showcase credit payment, that's fine. Let's focus on cash, no problem. Cool, now I'm not sure if this is the original design or the final design here, what I'm looking at. It's nice that I can click on it and get large versions of it, which is great. This is like super clear. I can actually see all of the detail, which is really, really awesome. I'm assuming this is the final design. Maybe it's an exploration. That's not super clear. Okay, credit. Okay, now we are going into credit card experience. It's a bit confusing. I thought it was just cash. Outcome. Okay, so I guess what I'm missing here is, again, some like exploratory work. on how you got to what I assume this is the final design. It would also be nice to see a few flows, a few edge cases, like what if there's an error or something like that, or how do you handle, like, what is the interaction pattern of this input? It would be nice to see like a little bit more of that like UX-y detail. I also don't see any research in this case study. Now I'm not sure, maybe you didn't do research, and that's fine if not. It would be good if that was kind of more upfront on why there's no research, or how, like, what informed your design decisions is I guess what I'm curious about. Was there any research done? Was it based on like data that you already had? Missing a little bit of that context. Okay, let's do another portfolio because I feel like we've been almost going for an hour, and I know that it's Sunday and I don't want to hold you all here forever. So let me find another one. Okay, let's do this one from Shreyan, who I think is watching the stream because I saw your question earlier. All right, Shreyan, what did you say? You said fresh engineering grad, but chose to pursue design. Awesome. Just started out in design, 1 year experience gained through freelancing. How can I make my portfolio more engaging and bring in a storytelling aspect to it? Okay, so let's have a look. 1 year of experience, self-taught, cool, nice. Cool. Okay, this is like quite a nice introduction. I like that you mentioned that you're a product designer. It's nice to know you're self-taught. Don't feel like you have to put this in here. I sometimes feel like self-taught designers feel that they need to be honest about this or like justify their credibility as a designer. I don't think that's true, whether you're self-taught or not. Shouldn't matter. Actually, I have a video coming out very soon about why you don't need a degree to become a designer, which I'm very excited about. I just edited it yesterday and it's probably my favorite video I've made. So yeah, don't feel like you need to lead with this to like define yourself as a designer. You could just say, I'm passionate and empathetic, striving to create. Just wanted to call that out in case you felt like you had to disclose that. Don't think you do. Okay, so what I'm not sure of here is like, were you designing this interface? Or is this a screenshot of like your design tool with your design in the middle? Not entirely sure. So let's have a look at your case study. Okay. So again, confused here. Is that like, were you designing this interface design? Or is this a screenshot of like your design tool? Web-based application. Okay, so maybe you were designing the application? It sounds like maybe you were. It just wasn't very clear. You took ownership of design from end to end. This is nice to know, like your role and like who you were collaborating with at the time is really, really useful. Okay. Okay, so I think you were designing this interface. That's clear now, but it wasn't super clear at the beginning. Okay, as I'm scrolling through, I'm seeing like a lot of images. But again, like, how did you get here? So from the beginning, we have overview, role and responsibilities, and then this kind of introduces the solution, but not really seeing what the problem statement was. Again, this is quite a solution-oriented overview. So like the solution was this platform that had to be reliable and user-friendly. How, like, why? How did this come about, and why did you need this? Was this a software that already existed and you're redesigning it? Or what was like the brief from the client? Assuming this is a client project, it would be great to have that be a little bit more clear. And then here, when I'm seeing these images, I'm like, how did you get to this final solution? what were the design decisions that you made? What were the insights that informed this? Kind of missing that context. Okay, I'm also a little bit confused about this. Like, are these individual features of the product that you designed? Let's see. I think these are individual features, which it's good to see the intent of the detail here. I will give you credit for that. Like, it's nice to see the features broken up and then like the solution of that feature. But this doesn't really tell me a lot about your process, or about how you got to this point again. So yeah, would really love to see more exploratory work. How did you even like, where did those features come from? Was there like a list of like a wish list of all the features the client wanted, and then were you responsible with having to like prioritize those? How did you know which ones like must be in the product versus like, oh, maybe this is a nice to have, or we can include this in V2. It would be nice to know that kind of stuff too, about how you kind of decided on this list of features. What do you say? Should we do one more portfolio and then wrap up with a couple of questions? That sounds like a nice way to end. Let's do this one from Yasmin. So Yasmin, let's see, what did she ask? Okay, she is a new graduate in Toronto. Hi. She's looking for feedback on flow of the case study. How can I make each aspect connect with one another? I find that it is very deliverables heavy, since I often take upon a multidisciplinary approach. So UX, UI, motion, etc. Okay. Cool. Let's have a look. All right, Yasmin. So Toronto-based digital designer. That's kind of nice to know. Where you're living. Product, visual, and motion design. Okay, so like, I'm not sure if you want to be leaning into the multidisciplinary designer approach or not. If you do, that's great. Like, this achieves it well. If you wanted to purely just lean into product, then again, similar feedback to earlier, I would just highlight the product aspect here. And then you can have the visual and motion as kind of like a sub set of experience. But maybe you're going for multidisciplinary, and if so, this works really nice. Okay, I think these are your different projects. This is a very unique way of laying out case studies. I haven't seen case studies laid out like this. So they're quite small thumbnails. Doesn't really give me much lead into what each of these projects are about, but I have an open mind and am willing to check out this one if it loads. I think I clicked it, but I'm not sure if it's doing anything. I think maybe I don't know, it could be me. Oh. Okay, well, I had to refresh it in the URL bar, but that's fine. Okay, textile doll and companion app helps parents cultivate. Okay, this is great. I immediately know the project I'm about to read. So it's going to be a smart textile doll and companion app for parents. You've got the context here of the duration, the team. You don't have your role there, which I would have... Oh, here. Okay. Here's your role, responsible for UX, visual, motion. This is nice. I like that you broke up each of these into kind of like different responsibilities. That's pretty nice. I'm not sure what this is, but it looks cool. Okay, so you jumped into solution, which again, would have loved to see the problem statement here at the beginning. How did this come about? Why? What were you trying to solve? What was the goal? As opposed to like, the solution is a physical product. How did you know that the solution should be a physical product and not a digital product, for example? Would have really liked to see that. How Mimi works. Okay, so this is again like, I guess, the final solution. Curious how you got there. features. Okay, yeah, the whole time I'm thinking like, cool, but like how did this design come about? Why did you decide that these 3 features were like the main features that your app should have? What kind of informed that the first time users should have a seamless beginning? I mean, yeah, it would just be nice to know a little bit of the insight or the decisions that went into defining like these as core features of the product, and then how you came to these designs. Yeah, I would love to see the explorations. Okay, now we're getting into problem. Okay, so, right. I think what you should do here is switch the order a little bit. This is really great, and I think you should lead with this and then have this at the end. Seems like this is kind of the final solution, which I understand what you were trying to do, kind of show it in the beginning so that I have the context, but it actually made me a little bit more confused. So I would recommend leading with this and then having that at the after this section. You've got a lot of detail in here, which is great. Like, I think you have everything here. It's more just about tying it all together and making sure that it flows well. But in general, this is a very dense case study. I'm quite impressed, actually. I don't know if this was a real project or a student project. Actually, don't really care, because I think it's great work, and that is the main thing, is the work and the experience. So yeah, this is a lot of detail. I think I would just like not have those final solutions at the beginning, but have them at the end. Like, this is kind of the stuff that I was hoping to see more earlier on. So yeah, that would be my advice. Okay, we've been going for about an hour. I'm happy to answer any more questions for the last 10 minutes or so. If you do have some questions, let me get my fancy question banner up again. There we go. If you do have questions about your design career or general questions about design process, while I pour myself a cup of tea carefully, yeah, feel free to pop it in the chat. Let me see what you all have been saying while I've been busy looking at your portfolios. And I know that I did get a lot more portfolio requests. I don't have time in this live stream to go through all of them, but my hope is that I will do more of these streams in future. And so just try and catch me at the next one and I will try and get to it. Vahid, how will design job positions be after COVID-19? I don't know. I really don't know. It is a weird time. It is a hard time. We've never gone through something like this before. I do think that like design has a role to play in all of this. Like, I do think that exciting design opportunities will come out of this. I just don't know what that looks like. And so I have hope, I have hope that design will continue to prosper and people will still need designers even during and after all of this is over. But I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I don't think anybody does, sadly. Let's see. Yankee, we need to be better writers for these portfolios. I don't think it's about being a better writer. Although, like, I would say that I do think case studies are a lot about telling a story, and that is the story of your design process. And it obviously doesn't hurt to know how to write well. But I think if you're telling the story of your design, you know that story best, and I don't think you have to be a great writer to tell that story. Just tell it how you would tell it. But, being able to know how to write well obviously helps a lot. Okay, oh my gosh, so many chat messages. I didn't expect 50 plus of you to join this live stream. I was actually really nervous about this stream and afraid that like 2 people would show up. So I'm very grateful that 50 plus of you showed up to this live stream. It really means a lot to me. Let's see. How many case studies from shares? How many case studies do you recommend to talk through in a product design interview? Okay, so when we do these like group portfolio reviews in an interview, it's typically 1 hour long, and you probably will only get through 2. I recommend having 3 projects ready in case you have enough time. But usually it's pretty thorough, and we can spend a good 20 to 30 minutes just on one case study. So I would be prepared to have at least 2, potentially 3. So have an extra one in your back pocket for the interview. And always lead with the one that you're most proud of. I've been in interviews where we didn't get past the first one because it was so meaty and we really wanted to get into the nitty gritty that we didn't have time to move on. So make sure you show, the first thing that you show is like the thing you want to make sure that they see, the thing that you are most proud of. Definitely would recommend doing that. Let's see. What else? When will be the next portfolio review live stream? I don't know, Danielle. This has been pretty fun though. Maybe I'll make this a monthly thing. We will see. Okay, Andy, thoughts on adding videos of you explaining certain parts of the case study? Yes, this is something that I would like to do. So at the beginning of the year, I did do a series on getting a new job. It was called New Year, New Job. And then in that, I had a video all about the importance of the portfolio and the case study. And I did go a little bit into the detail there of how to structure a case study. But I would love to pull that apart more and go into even more detail. So it is on my list of potential video topic ideas. And it's great to hear that you would find this helpful. So I will keep that in mind. Thank you for sharing. What are some questions you asked during the interview? So it depends what I'm tasked to interview. So we have this group portfolio review, and then we split up and we do one-on-ones with the candidate, and each one-on-one has a different like theme or topic. Usually I'm assigned the topic of exploration and breadth or something around those lines. And so then the interview is really about that, like about depth, about breadth, about exploring. So usually I'll take a case study that they presented in the group portfolio review, and then we'll go really, really deep into that case study, talk about all the explorations they did, the decisions that they made, how deep they went, how wide they went. That's kind of the theme of the one-on-one interview that I have with the candidate, and so questions are usually kind of around that. Okay, there's a lot of great questions here. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to all of them. But Shreyan does ask one about whiteboarding exercises. Just do your best. I think it depends on the exercise as to how to approach it, right? But one thing I do recommend is to talk out loud. So everything you're thinking, you should be saying out loud. So if you just stand up there and like silently do the whiteboard exercise, it's not going to tell me much about like what your process is, what you're thinking, the decisions that you're making, even if it's like micro split decisions. So that would be my key piece of advice for if you're doing one of those whiteboarding exercises. Make sure you're speaking out loud and like sharing your thought process. That can sometimes win you more points, so to speak, than the actual output of your whiteboarding process. So also, actually, don't be afraid to ask questions. I remember when I did my whiteboarding exercise for Uber, I initially didn't understand the prompt. And I had this terrifying moment of like, do I ask for clarification or do I just pretend I know what they asked? And I asked for clarification. And so I think it's fine to ask clarifying questions. I think it's fine to ask general questions along the way as you're doing the whiteboarding interview. I don't think the interviewer expects you to have all of the answers. So it's totally okay to ask questions too, because that will influence, the output of the exercise. Okay, I think I'm going to answer 2 more questions. Let's see. Okay. Would it be useful to condense portfolio case studies into 2 to 3 minute video? Potentially. I've actually given this as feedback to a designer before, where I was reviewing their portfolio and told them that I would have loved to see just like a 2 minute summary video. Maybe it can just be you talking about the project, a bit of a like demo or a screen recording of the prototype or something like that. Honestly, that's not going to hurt. I don't think designers do this enough. It's something that I'm definitely considering for my portfolio when I have these case studies up, is to include a video of just me talking about the process. I think that that would be really cool to see. Not essential, but if it's something that you want to do, then I say go for it. Okay, last question from Ash. What do you do if you're seeking an internship, got a great portfolio, feedback from designers at different levels, got referrals, grew a network, but didn't receive an interview for months? I don't know, Ash. It could be that there could be internal things going on that you don't know about. Maybe they decided to postpone their hiring for some reason. You know, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors at the company. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. You know, sometimes we get really, really great candidates, but it's just not the right time, so we save them for later. Maybe, you know, I'm sure that they get a lot of applications, so maybe they just had others already on the list that they had to go through first before they got to yours. There could be a lot of different reasons as to why you didn't get a call back straight away. But I would also say that you shouldn't hesitate in following up with the hiring manager. If you haven't heard back for a little while, there's no harm in following up with them. I would say wait at least 1 week, 2 maybe, before following up. Please don't follow up the next day. It's too soon. But yeah, don't be afraid to follow up too. You know, sometimes things slip through the cracks, people forget. You know, there could be so many reasons as to why. Okay, and with that, I think I'm going to wrap this up. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you to everybody who joined. This was super, super fun. Let me know if you enjoyed this format of doing a live stream. If you did, I'm more than happy to do more of them in future. It was super fun to have a lot of you in the chat and sharing your portfolio. Yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this, and I have a new video coming out next week all about you know, why you don't need to have a degree to become a designer. So look out for that in your feeds. And yeah, thank you for joining me on this Sunday. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I hope that you have a fantastic week next week. I will see you in another video. Thanks all. Bye-bye.